Now, in the last video, which I just abruptly ended at 10 minutes, I just had time to finish this and save it, and now what we need to do is go on and save out our individual final logos. Now, we do have to be aware of if we have any variations of the logo, but we'll be developing those as we go along. So here is our final logo with our clear space, and I named my file just a little bit better so it's obvious. But I can start to get rid of some of these elements that I know are not needed. So I know those aren't needed, but I am going to leave the outer box. The reason why is because I want to make my art space actually fill this particular thing, or my artboard fill this particular shape. So I'm going to go to select the object, go to the object menu, go to artboards, and say fit to selected art. What that will do is make sure that I have my artboard fitting exactly the shape of the clear space that I've determined that this logo needs. Then I can go ahead and delete that element inside. Now what I'm going to do is start to save out my final logos. I know that I have my spot colors. I know that I've got my clear space in here. So let's save out our first final logo. And so, by the way, this is an RGB version. So I'm going to do save as, and I'm going to create a new folder called Final Logos. And inside here, this is going to be the Ubuntu Linux logo, and I'm going to call this one RGB. Oh, by the way, you can click on the artboards, but I don't think that it matters. I think that if you just click on it normally, it's okay. But that will matter here in a little bit. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save this as a legacy format. Illustrator CS possibly is a good choice. I don't know if it really matters which one you choose, but the reason to do a legacy format is so that you make sure that somebody with an older version of Illustrator can open this and also place it in any other desktop publishing application. So that should be good. We've saved it out. Now the next thing that we're going to do is save out some of the other versions that we might use. For example, one of the things that they might do is use it for websites. So let's save out what's called actually, now that I'm in the save, I might as well use it, an SVG format. This is a really nice format to use. We can even use the artboards to make sure that we retain the spacing around it, the X spacing around it. I'm going to hit save, and I'm not going to click on the Illustrator editing capabilities. The reason why is because this will generate a lot more code. So we're just going to leave it as is and click OK. And what this has done is this is saved out in our final logos. It's saved out in SVG format, and this SGV format is a scalable vector format for the web. It's a really new but very nice format. We're also going to export the different formats that we want that we might also need. For example, since it's the first one we have here, an EMF is a really good format for Word documents and all the other Office applications like PowerPoint and Excel. So I typically give this to clients as well because it's a format they can use with all the Microsoft apps. Another format, and this is where I was going before, is the PNG. Now, PNGs are important because they have transparency, but in this case we want to make sure that we click on the artboard to make sure that that clear space actually becomes an output with the actual logo. The other thing is I know the first one we're going to do is the web version, which means it's going to be a kind of small version. Then I'll click OK, export. And what I'm going to do is set my resolution. Since the default was set to 72, I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that. So this is the web version that is output. If I go and take a look at that, you'll see that this web version is about 400 pixels by 127. And by the way, you can go ahead and remove these 0 ones that it automatically outputs. It's just something that it tends to do. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that stuff. The next thing I'm going to do is export a print version. So I'm going to call this print, use the artboard, hit export, and you'll see that that's there, and I'm going to change this to the high 300 pixels per inch. Now I'll click OK. And if we take a look at that file, you'll see now it's 1664 pixels by, oh, what is that? 525. So a lot bigger. It's about 5.5 inches or something like that. A little more than 5 inches. Actually, it even says it's 5.5 inches by 1.7 inches at 300 dpi, which is, if we took a look at it, that's what we should see. It's actually at a resolution of 300 pixels per inch. So that's a pretty large bitmap image. Anyway, our other small logo, you can see, is much, much smaller. And because we output it, well, look at that. It's coming up at least with the same print resolution for some reason in here, but it's still 5.56 inches, but it's at 72 dots per inch. So that's the way it kind of works. Anyway, now we've got our basic logos output, and we should output the other variations that we need. And that might include a grayscale logo or black and white logo, as well as a white logo. So what I'm going to do is take this text, and I'm going to take everything, change the fill completely to black, and I'm going to save this. Actually, you know what? Before I do that, I'm going to undo that, because I didn't even really think about it. I should actually change my color model to CMYK, and then I need to output a CMYK version of this as well. So let me save as, and this should be an Illustrator EPS, and this is going to be my CMYK version. And hit save, and we're going to make sure that we're going to a legacy format. And one of the things to note is that these colors, they were originally RGB colors. They will actually be converted to CMYK inside the new one, but we probably should go inside here and change them to CMYK before we save this out. So it's just something to be aware of. That way we know that we actually are outputting our CMYK colors. Now, if I were to open up that CMYK EPS, it might have converted the colors, but honestly, I don't really know. I've never really done this. So I'm going to do that as 2, just to see if there's any difference. Saved it. I'm going to go ahead and close this, bring it up, and let's see what we get. In the first one, of course, if I go and take a look at my colors, they have been converted to CMYK. So we didn't actually have to manually convert them to CMYK because it would do that on its own. But you'll notice that my swatch names, of course, are still the original RGB colors. It just won't show that to me until I actually open up the file again. Okay, so anyway, now we're ready to go on to our black version. So I can go ahead and make everything black, and I'm going to save it again as an EPS, and this is going to be black. Black. So I know this is a lot of repetitive stuff here, but this is what it takes. And then I can also do a white version, but I'm going to not worry about that. Of course, you should output all the other versions that you need, the EPS, the PNG, and everything else. Always important to have all that. Now, I want to show you a quick way to evaluate how you might do a grayscale image. One way to do that is to write a white box over the top of your object there, just to kind of see what it looks like. And I'll even make it fit just to make it look pretty. And what you do is you change it in the transparency to saturation, and you'll actually get to see basically what your black and white values would be. Now, you can't pick these colors very easily, but if you have a third-party picker, like I have, what is this thing called? It's called Instant Eyedropper. It works really well because you can hover over objects and you can actually grab their color from it, and you can use the different color models in here to find out which ones they are. So if I want to find out what that RGB color value is, I can